My guinea pig's whistling. Anyway, in this episode, we're going to finish up most of the metal fab for repairing the trunk brace. We're on the home stretch with this, so we can get this finished up. When this is finished up, we'll be able to paint the underside of the car with POR 15, get the rear end back in, and we can move on to bigger and better things. So let's do it. So it is a beautiful Saturday, and I have time to actually work on the car this weekend, which means I can work in the daytime as opposed to being the night owl that I usually am when I do all this stuff. What we're working on today is finishing this side of the rear trunk brace. I already have all my marks laid out to make this piece. I'm gonna be using the same method I used to make this part of the bracket. Basically cut it out, and I am still going to score it because this is 16 gauge steel, which is tough to bend. And I'm only going to score it on the sides that are going to be the outside bends. That way grinding down the welds will be easier I should say. Put it up there, grind off whatever I need to grind off to make it fit. I do need to repair these as well. Still learning how to drill out my spot welds. Another art that needs to be mastered. But I will sand this up, prep it, get this taken care of before I weld this piece in. One thing I point out about my template is I actually have the lines on both sides, and I know which lines need to be scored depending on what side it is. That just makes it a little easier. Okay, so everything's cut, scored. These lines here, these sections here are gonna be my flanges for spot welds. This section here is actually left a little bit longer because it's going to, well, you'll see when I put it on the car, it's gonna have to bend upward. This actually has to get cut. Hopefully all the scoring makes it easier to bend, and yeah, shouldn't be too bad. We got her fitting good now. It's hard to see, but this is level with the bottom of the frame, and it does match the contour of the frame along here. What I need to do now is, if I pop this off, I already patched the holes in the frame, but I want to treat the frame in along here. So that's taken care of and out of the way. I don't think I'm going to treat this piece yet. I have to think about this. All right guys, so a few days have passed since I last left off with filming the repair here on the rear trunk brace. I can't even remember where I was at in the footage, but here it is right now. So I took some time to properly coat the area of the frame that was going to be no longer accessible once I put in the patch. So it's been coated here, everything looks good. I did it out to about here. I should be able to get the POR 15 around everything else. And I can't remember if I had this primed or not, but I just have to sand these edges off in preparation to weld in the bracket. I also need to sand this off and finish welding and blending this in. So there's that. But in that time period, all that was going on, I actually hopped over here and started this repair because I wanted to get it finished, and I didn't really want to film it because it's pretty similar to what I was doing over here. But in the process of doing this, I made a change to the design. I was trying to replicate this bracket to make it as similar to the original one as possible. But when they stamp it, this metal piece basically twists and curves up to meet the trunk floor. So it goes from the frame rail and comes up and twists to meet the trunk floor and run across here. And I realized trying to replicate that was more work than it needed to be, and it was kind of difficult. So instead, I just simplified things and kept it a 90-degree angle, and then I filled this in here, and I'll grind this all up and clean this. But this repair is pretty much done. It just needs to be cleaned up. I have to finish the plug welds, but I'll show you this once it's all finished, once I'm done welding this up and grinding it and cleaning it. But we can turn our attention back over to here. And I think the first thing I'm going to do is finish this piece by putting in spot welds here, making these scores strong again. All right, so here's the finished bracket. It's pretty good, pretty smooth on most of the edges. We're ready to go. I got the holes drilled so I can do my plug welds, and I just gotta wipe this thing down in acetone. All right, that's where that bracket's gonna go. So I'm just gonna take the time. All right, so I got the paint stripped. So we'll have good, clean plug welds going through the bracket onto the frame. So I do need to get some paint and coating in here because the frame rail is going to cover this up, and once this gets welded onto the car, I won't be able to get in here. I don't know how much moisture would actually get in here to cause trouble, but while I have it off and I'm making it, I might as well get that coating on there. And then we can weld this on probably tomorrow. So we do have a little ways to go yet, but we're getting there on this. I am getting sick of this, so I'm ready to move on to something else. I want to get the underside painted. I want to get the whole back end in and move to either the floor pan or a door, something like that. I'm ready for a change of scenery on this. This trunk brace is not going to turn out as good as I'd hoped, but it's going to be good. It'll be all right. Won't be bad. Won't be a masterpiece. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't losing steam on this whole thing. Ready to go to something else. We'll get there. New night, ready to rock and roll. Everything's prepped, ready to go. New night, we can start welding this thing in. Well, we're cruising now. I got a little ahead of myself and forgot to turn the camera on for some of this stuff, but I went ahead and did my plug welds and ground those down. And you know, this isn't pretty, but this will clean up nicely. It should anyway. And this whole piece is starting to come along. Got some grinding to do down there. I got to fill in this piece, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. That shouldn't be too bad. Things are really starting to come together now. This brace is in there good. You can see that, you know, trying to move that moves the car. So this is welded in real solid to the frame rail. This connection's real good. This is all solid new metal here, which should give the trunk area plenty of support. The gas tank's gonna rest in along here. So I feel good about all this so far. Once I get this all welded up and ground down, we'll bang it around a little bit just to see how sturdy it is. This edge needs to be trimmed. I left these long, so I'll come back through here and trim this metal out, but everything's looking pretty good so far. All right, all I'm gonna do is hold this up and tack it in place, hit it, just tack it a few times, and then we'll clamp this onto the piece, and then I'll come in here with both hands and get this thing going. All right, so that's the worst of it because I was kind of doing it one-handed and it was a little awkward. But now that I have that held in place, I'm just gonna come along here and just make little tacks. All right, we're looking pretty good now. Brace is pretty good. Still got a little bit of cleanup to do, but so this is all new. From here all the way over to here is new fabricated metal. A little bit of primer here, that's where I protected that first piece. But there's a little bit of cleanup I have to do. I'll fill in like this area a little bit more, clean that up. But for the most part, this side is finished. I have to get down in here, I have to cut this piece of metal off, clean that up. I'll show you what that looks like whenever I finish it up. I just need to do some weld cleanup on that side then too, and finish my plug welds. And this brace is pretty much finished up other than having to drill my holes to put on my balance brackets. This job is about finished up. By the way, I mean, this isn't funny, but I want to point out that I did catch my shirt on fire with that angle grinder. It just happened off camera, so I wasn't able to show it. But anyway, be careful. Don't let the sparks bounce off of you, or wear something leather. I don't know. Be smarter about it. So I spent a lot of time welding and grinding this week, so that's all I have for you. But like I said, hopefully we're gonna finish this thing up and we can move on to bigger and better things soon. So appreciate you guys hanging out with me. And until the next episode, guys, take care.